Unscripted.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another edition of PD and P-Dubs Unscripted. PD, great to be with you once again.
Good to be with you. Feel like we just did this.
I know, and time just flies on by every time we're in here.
Right.
Seems just like yesterday almost. And so today we have a special guest.
Yeah,
for
very
us.
special guest.
Very special to me, and it's my daughter Sydney. So Sydney, welcome to PD and P-Dubs.
Hello. It's very fun to be here.
Yeah, great to have you.
Glad to have you join us here.
So PD Sid came up and said, "Hey, Dad, can I be in a podcast with you and Pastor Donald?" I'm like, "Absolutely," And so we're like, "What do you want to talk about?" And so she got real specific on me.
Okay, that's good,
said, right? Yeah, it's good to know that what you want to talk about, I suppose. So Sydney said, "Yeah, I'd like to talk about the parable of the lost sheep," and I think that's one that a lot of people can identify, and so it sounds intriguing. So, friends, that's what we're going to be digging into today.
It's always good to get another voice in here besides the two of us.
Oh, I know. Yeah. So, Sydney, would you mind just telling us a little bit about yourself so our audience can get to know you? Just interests, hobbies, things you do, things you like.
So right now, well, you already said it, but I am your daughter. I am one of your two. But right now I'm mostly just kind of working, hanging out with friends when I can, kind of thing. I am writing more, which was a good goal for me this year. I don't normally do resolutions, but I enjoy writing, and I do eventually want to publish. So I've been on that, so that's been nice.
Yeah.
Recently got an apartment, so that's been fun putting that all
Big
together.
change in life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just about finished with that, which is exciting.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's something.
Yeah. Yeah. Sid has always loved writing, and
I get that from Mom.
yeah, I think that is from Mom. And I've not read too much of Sydney's, but things that I've heard of, she goes really deep, and she's really an excellent writer. So I hope one day you can become published. I think a lot of people would really be interested in your stuff. Can you share with everybody like the kind of writing that you do?
Yeah, so I have an overthinker brain. So that means I get plenty of ideas.
Okay.
But right now I have a few different, the one I'm mainly working on is a dystopian. So it's just very gritty, and like the point of that particular one is just to like, what if this happened sort of thing. And then it takes, of course, the darker route. But I also do have a couple work in progresses. One is a sci-fi fantasy, kind of along the lines of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, if either one of you have seen that or read it.
What, The Meaning of Life is 42?
Yeah.
That's all I know from that fucking movie.
But yeah, so something similar to that where it's more goofy and more lighthearted. And
Yeah.
I have one that my friend actually challenged me to write, so I don't think I'll ever publish it.
Oh. All right.
But it's like the werewolf tropes. I get a lot of those Facebook ads where it's like, read a little bit and then it's like, oh, use this app. And I would get sucked in and I would get upset about that because it was very cheesy.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah. So different kinds of genres. Right now it's mostly the dystopian with like the sci-fi on the side. I don't know what genre it is yet, but I did do like a more melancholy tone sort of thing I'm working on. I don't know. It's a lot.
And you also have you enjoy painting.
I do.
Right?
Yes.
So remember Pastor Carl
Yep.
Fay from Prince of Peace? He has this art
Show
and contest, and I think it was his first year that he did it. Sydney was an entrant.
Okay.
And so she painted something and got into the fun. And but every now and again she'll just come up and say, "Oh, look what I painted." And it's usually smaller things. It's not like real huge, but
Big canvases really take time.
yeah. So it's very enjoy that as a hobby. So that's really great.
Yeah, the one I did for that was, I still remember it. It was kind of like the bottom like quarter or even maybe a third was kind of like upside down. And it was like this really, like the top 2/3 was like this really pretty like foresty thing with like a creek running through. And the creek was kind of like my conduit to the bottom half, which if you turned it over, was like a person on the ground crying with like Jesus around them and like this emanating light forward. So it's like I was trying to go with the theme he had that year.
Yeah.
That seems like I could never figure out how to do something like that.
I know, that's beyond me.
When you were talking about that, and I can't remember because I know you were talking about your Bible you have with you from the National Youth Gathering.
Mm-hmm.
Was the Jesus painter there that year?
I think so. The one that would do like the sand and then like shake it off.
No,
of thing?
he would like start painting a picture, and then you'd be like, it'd kind of be an abstract, and then you kind of see what it was.
Oh, like as he went.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was there.
Yeah, because I know like I have a couple of his pictures up in my office, like the one where it's Jesus and then him as the shepherd.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
that was always kind of, I'm like, how do people just come? I mean, I know he's done
It's
those
so
in the
hard.
past, but to just paint like that in front of people, and he'd have little things within there.
Yeah, like those types of paintings are really hard because you deal a lot with negative space as opposed to like drawing a stick figure. You're like, okay, how do I get this to look like a hand, but not right away? Kind of like it's like those little word things. Like we have one, it says "Go Cubs."
Yeah.
And like you don't realize it says "Go Cubs" because your brain
right.
is like focused on the dark wood and not like the negative space. So
Okay, I've seen the.
it's very hard. to
Okay,
do.
I've seen the one that's like that says Jesus.
Jesus on
Yeah.
it. Yeah.
Nah, go figure. You have a Go Cubs one.
I didn't buy it. It got given to me. So, I gladly received it. So I should bring that into my office so you can always look at it.
Just hang it right on your door.
Yeah.
Well, I got my White Sox bling the home run chain that somebody gave me from a few years ago hanging in my
that's
office.
pretty cool. For sure. So, well, we're glad that you're with us, Sydney. And so we're looking into Luke chapter 15. The parable of the lost sheep is also written in Matthew chapter 18, but we thought we would focus on the Luke 15 passages and base our discussion on that. So as we normally do, we'd like to just read this to you so that you who are listening can get a full effect of it. So Sydney is kind enough to read it for us.
All right. So again, that is Luke chapter 15. It'll be verses 3 through 7, so about 5 verses. Now the tax collectors and sinners were all gathering around to hear him. But the Pharisees and the teachers of the law muttered, "This man welcomes sinners and eats with them." Then Jesus told them this parable. "Suppose one of you has 100 sheep and loses one of them. Does he not leave the 99 in the open country and go after the lost sheep until he finds it? And when he finds it, he joyfully puts it on his shoulders and goes home. Then he calls his friends and neighbors together and says, 'Rejoice with me. I have found my lost sheep.' I tell you that in the same way, there will be more rejoicing in heaven over one sinner who repents than over 99 righteous persons who do not need to repent."
This is the word of the Lord.
Thanks be to
Thanks
God.
be to God. Yeah, thanks for reading that. And here's a direct, story right at those Pharisees and scribes, who the grumblers.
Yeah, who would grumble?
Who would grumble?
Grumble,
Yeah.
grumble, grumble. I almost made a voice for them, but I didn't know if that was appropriate.
Somewhere in the back of my head, I think that word grumbled is the same word that's used when the Israelites were in the desert grumbling.
Let me try to look up here on Logos what I can see for that. So, wait a second. Yeah, if you want to keep talking as I try to look that up.
Yeah, so I think, Jesus hits them right across the face when he says 99 righteous persons, who need no repentance. That's not
Absolutely.
that they don't need it, but they think they don't need it, right? And so I'm sure after he told them this story, and there's more to follow, which is what kind of drew you into this passage,
Yeah.
that they really kind of got more than grumbling and were just like not pleased at all with Jesus. But this one who has 100 sheep, that's a lot of sheep, to care for.
Yeah, it's a big job.
And the fact that when one is lost, he goes after the one that is lost. And it says that he doesn't leave the 99 in the open country and go after the 99. If he has lost one of them, does does not leave the 99 in the open country and go after. So he goes after them, and so it's like when we're off on our own, we are lost. So, did you come up with anything on that grumble?
Not working out too well here.
Grumble, grumble.
Yeah. So I guess, when we were kind of talking at home, like what drew you to this text, and why did you want to talk about it?
So there's actually a little bit of a catalyst, and I gave you brief spark notes of that catalyst.
Yeah.
So I am someone who's kind of always dealt with mental health issues. I still have yet to be clinically diagnosed, but I've been to therapy, and learned tools to help with both depression and anxiety. So I'll like go like up and down. I had like a really bad episode earlier in my life that like spanned years, and that was before I even knew what I was really dealing with, which unfortunately is common. So like the past few years, when I did get therapy, it just happened to be a very good year to get therapy. We went through some family, I don't want to say drama because that's not the right word.
Yeah. Struggles.
Thank you. And so that just happened to be very well lined up. And then ever since then, I've had those tools and I've been relatively good at it. However, life is life, and will give you any and all stresses it can. So pretty much like this last, I'll say maybe like little over a year, little under, somewhere around there. I've just had a lot going on. It always starts small, so you don't really realize it. And I unfortunately have the Irish blood to push my emotions down into my stomach if I'm not paying attention.
Oh, and you're also part German too.
True, so very stubborn.
You've got
people.
a double blessing there in that regard. The stubbornness and the pushing things down.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yes. So like that was a big thing in therapy for me, was like learning to actually pay attention. But I still didn't at this point, which I'm a person, so that happens. But yeah, so last year I kind of started with stuff at work. Nobody that like, there was no necessarily any fault to it. It was just getting really frustrating. There are some changes. The company that I work for has been going through a lot of changes. Like they just got rid of one of their CEOs of like 10 years. And then there's just been a lot of like restructuring in the corporate sense. So it's kind of now falling down to like the stores itself. So a lot of that was like just figuring it out. And I am lucky to have very good bosses who are very like aware of all these things. However, the stress was still there.
Yeah.
And then toward the end of the year, there was some like family stuff that came up that was just really hard to see and deal with, and still is hard to see and deal with. So just learning how to deal with that. But again, that wasn't something I was fully paying attention to. Like it was kind of more of a thought like, oh yeah, that's probably something I should like unpack and unload.
Yeah.
And then just never really did because of all the other stress. And then also had some health issues. One of the main ones being like I still have all 4 wisdom teeth. And the one was getting impacted, and I knew I had to go get it, like pulled. I just had a lot of insurance issues because through the same work, for whatever reason, my initial dental through them didn't go through. So then I had to go find my own, and then had to go for the waiting period. So that was annoying. But that came up in January. So Dad, went with me to the place to get it removed because at that point it was so painful. I was literally crying at work.
Yeah. Yeah. You were kind of not able to function much.
No.
Yeah.
And I was not like I could not move my mouth without pain. And then went there only to find out they couldn't immediately do it, but they did prescribe me some like medication to help with the pain and all that. So that's been pretty tame since, but they did give me like a plan and of like how to get through all this stuff, and that was also
pretty costly.
priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah. So seeing that as well, along with everything.
Well, and having just moved out on your own,
yeah.
and
So that was
bearing the cost of rent and living on your own.
Yeah. So that one is kind of weird because it's like a split of positive and negative stress. So like the positive is like, I'm excited, I have my apartment, but then the negative is all of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, it was just really piling up. And then unfortunately in that same month where I had my teeth looked at, January, we also had another family tragedy, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And that one kind of jump-started my mental health again, mostly like the anxiety.
Understandable.
Yeah. So I kind of like reverted back to that 1 year and was starting to have more and more panic attacks, which at the time I called them panic attacks because I didn't know why I was having them.
Yeah.
But they're technically classified as anxiety attacks now, since I do know that's where it came from. It was to the point where I had to sit outside in the cold in the out of the apartment for like 30 minutes just to calm my body down. So that was very stressful. So of course, life is life and it affects everything. So that kind of, when it came to my faith, I've always believed in God. Like that is not a question for me of whether or not he's real. I do actually have a tattoo, much to my parents' chagrin.
Well, there's a story there. So, like, I've always been like, you kids can't get tattoos until you're 18, right? Yeah. And so Sydney waited. She waited till she was 18, unlike one of her siblings.
I was gonna say, I thought one of the other siblings at least has some.
Oh yeah,
my older brother.
Well, they all do now.
Oh, they all
do.
We're all
Mom and dad.
Well, I was gonna say, where's your
tattoo-less.
tattoo? Where's your 2016 Cubby World Series champion
Believe
tattoo?
me, that was tempting. It was tempting, but so Sydney comes and she goes, "Yeah, I got a tattoo," and she shows me, and it's John 14:1, and do not let your hearts be troubled. And she goes, I go, "Oh, that's dirty pool," because when we were in Fort Wayne and she was kind of struggling, 10. I tried to comfort her with John 14. And she really liked that. So, of course, how can I get mad at her? Like, oh, way to go, get a tattoo. Well, it's
when it's the Bible
angel
verse.
wings, and it's the Bible verse that I shared with her and she liked. And so I'm like, oh, all right, fine.
Is it your confirmation verse?
It was, yeah. I did make it my verse. But yeah, I did not mean to not tell you guys I was getting it.
All right.
I really did mean to be like, hey.
But isn't it
Sydney's like her father. She likes to avoid things.
It's easier to ask for forgiveness than permission.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Was not the thought at the time, but thank you.
Because you can't say no once you already have it on your body.
It's like it's done. What's done is done,
I mean, technically there is laser removal, but that's expensive.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that's never going to be a question for me.
Yeah. So your faith is strong, and
it's more of like more about doubts about myself in that moment. So this is kind of where I was like telling you, and when we were talking about it, like just most of my, we'll say, issues, I guess, they stem from a lot of like feeling worthy of things. So I'm pretty sure that's why I worked so hard in school, aside from the fact that you guys gave us that opportunity to work so hard in school. But it felt like my worth was tied to that. It felt like my worth was tied to like my physical image. It felt like my worth was tied to like a lot of these things that are going to change. So nothing was like stable. So knowing that kind of like to also help me pull back out. But for the last few months, it's been really bad. Where I would, again, like question, like, why am I here? Like, I don't even know what I want to do anymore. Cause like work has been so rough.
Yeah.
Like, what am I here for? If like, there's no real like connection or anything, which again, logically, due to the fact that I did go to therapy and this was one of the tools, it's like logically I know what I'm thinking is not true.
Right.
Like I have people in my life that care about me. It's not the end of the world if I don't know what I'm doing for the rest of my life. I'm still 28. So it's not like I'm, even if I was like 54, like.
Well, that's like me. I didn't know what I needed to do until I was 40, and here I am now, pastor.
Isn't 30 the new 20, right?
I think so.
Kind of.
And
yeah.
I think
It
that's
seems
what
to
like
be.
studies I've seen, especially for like emerging adults, because now like you don't go from like teenager, adolescent to adult, it's emerging adulthood, which is like 18 to 25-year-old. And it's kind of one of those people like, instead of like graduating college at 22, getting settled and then doing that career for 40, 50 years, whatever, it's, I'm going to wait till 30 to figure out really what I want to be. So you're still kind of in that time frame that like now society is like pushing on people.
Yeah, it's definitely like slowed down. Like it's a very like drawn out process. Cause even like people having kids. Like you and mom had kids when you were 25, 30, and 33.
Yeah.
I'm 28. I have no children.
Yeah. Well, and that was and PD's getting at something like the generational expectations. Like when my parents, the questions always were like, okay, where are you going to go to college? Okay, got to figure that out. And then you go, and it's like, are you going to get a job? And then like, are you going to get married? When are you going to have kids? And then like you get married. When are you going to have kids? And like, I don't know. I'm just trying to figure this out. And so you're like 24, 25 at that time. And like by the time we were 25, we had our first child. And so it makes natural sense that having lived that, whether consciously or subconsciously, you impose those same kind of like pressures on your own kids. So by you explaining that, like, okay, things have changed in this generation.
Even look like, I would say, my grandparents, great-grandparents' age, almost 18, 20 was almost being married at that age. Mm-hmm. And now, like, marriage age, I think, is up for males around 28, for females in the 27 or something.
Makes sense.
So all that's getting pushed later, and even having kids are pushed later. And that's where they talk about, even with, like, church attendance, is like, that's why you don't see as many as the 20-year-olds, because they're all trying to figure themselves out. Mm-hmm. Then when they start having kids, it's like, oh, I want to raise my kid in the church. Then they start coming back to the church. But since people are having kids later, they're coming back to church at a later time.
Even the couples that you and I officiate weddings for, they're a little older.
Right.
They're like just exactly what you're saying. Like the youngest that we have is probably later 20s. So anyway, good point.
Sorry for the rabbit hole.
Yeah, that's all right.
I love tangents.
Yeah.
Trust me.
So you've had these challenges,
yes.
and you've learned how to deal with them when these crisis moments come up. So you've developed skills through counseling. So I'm so grateful that you're sharing that, because for those who are listening, there's I think still out there a stigma of like getting help, and
mental health.
And it's getting better and better. Mm-hmm. Like we now see celebrities and athletes, professional athletes, who talk about their mental health struggles. And so now that opens the door for us average folk to feel like, well, hey, if they are strong and courageous and brave enough, I could do this too. And so that's why I'm grateful our society has gotten to that point. So, but yet even in that, you're kind of describing, you're looking for something like, it sounds like very stable in a very moving period of time in your life. You're looking for that thing to hang on to that won't change.
Yeah, which is kind of crazy, because as a kid, you don't really think about it too hard. Mm-hmm. You're just like, oh, why am I doing the same thing over and over and over again? Like, it feels monotonous. And like as a kid, you want to be more stimulated. So it's like, oh, let me go outside today. Oh, I want to stay inside today. Or like whatever it is. But like that was another thing realizing as an adult was like, no, stability is fine. It's good. It's needed. Routine is good. Mm-hmm. And like scientifically proven good for the brain. So that's good. But yeah, no, there's definitely still that stigma. And that's kind of why I talk about it a lot, because it did take me a while to even like ask if we had the funds for that, because I was still under your and mom's insurance. Yeah. So like it wasn't like I was paying for it. So I knew I had to ask. But it was kind of like a nice sigh of relief when I did eventually ask, and I had my first session. So I'm always a big proponent on that, but I do have the caveat of like, it's better when you have the desire to go, because anytime you like push someone, it does get a little more difficult. Like it's not impossible that it won't work or won't help, but it is a lot easier when you are like fully open to it. Because that's kind of how I treated my therapist. I was like, I am going to tell you everything. I can't like cherry pick this. I need to just lay it out and then hear what it is.
I think that's a key thing. Like I think of times when I have visited people in behavioral places where they got to work through the workbook. I'm sure on their own they could figure out, okay, this is what they want me to say in this. But that does you no good. Like you got to take it to heart and hope and try to learn and grow from it.
Right. Because I think that's like the human psyche is like, all right, I am going to do whatever I need to do to get out of this, because I don't want to be here. And so you kind of like play the game.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And
that
it's
was
not
actually,
helpful.
That was the exact like wording I had in my head. I was like, I don't want to continue like this. And that was kind of like when I went off to college, because that was like the few year span. It was like high school and the first couple of years of college is when I was like really depressed. Because this was not the reason I was depressed, but I was living with you guys and I did community college first. So I literally would drive, go to my classes, drive back home, and then like stay in my room, hang out with you and mom. Like I did not do a lot. So SIU is also another moment where like I am 6 hours south of my family. I know nobody down here. I am not going to be a hermit for the next 2.5 years. Like I had to like force myself. And I was actually very thankful you stayed for that first day, because you like helped me at least find a table to like talk to. I had to like join an RSO, or I think I mix up the acronym. It's student run organizations.
Yeah.
But I feel like they're
SRO.
SRO, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, so actually that is the exact phrasing I've had in my head. Like even when I started therapy, it's like I don't want to stay like this. But yeah, so these last few months have just been like not necessarily spiraling. Like I was still very much trying to like get a handle on it. Like especially when we lost that family member in January, because it was more of like, I need to remind myself this isn't about me, and not like in a selfish, narcissistic way, although it can go there sometimes, but it's in a way of like, I need to be there for my family, not like I can cry later when I'm home. Like it's okay. But so like all of this mounting up did bring up a lot of those old thinking tracks of just like, I'm not worth anything. Why am I here? Like, I would never do anything. Thankfully, I don't have that severe depression, but like it still gets you pretty low. Like I just don't want to do things.
So let me ask you, in those moments where you have those feelings, do you feel a sense of you're on your own?
Yeah, absolutely.
You're out away from, like you are literally out on your own, trying to find your way through things.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So that kind of helps me.
And it fits with the parable being that lost sheep. And, you know, this is something I know you've talked about. I like to bring up is that idea the devil likes to isolate us and pounce on us when we're all alone because he knows that we're easy prey. And compared to if we're surrounded by people, especially other Christians, that we feel that support and we don't maybe have those negative self-views. But when you're isolated and sitting and dwelling in your thoughts, it's easy to go to dark places.
Yeah, especially kind of like you said, I'd come home, go in my room, and I remember those days.
Yeah.
And you know, you always were in your room, and so it's like, all right, that's your routine, and so. But yeah, when you're alone in your room, your thoughts are your own. Satan likes to get into our thoughts, and you talked about doubting. I mean, that's Satan. You know, like that's his MO. You know. Like help try and make us doubt our faith or our own self and that kind of thing. Yeah.
So pretty much from there, it was just like, it was literally because my brain will like sit there and like go through people in my life and like try and make it be like, okay, this is why you're alone. This is why you can't go to this person. This is why you can't go to this person. Like,
oh, so you would talk yourself out of like reaching out to people.
Yeah, like my brain would try to. And I do separate my brain, even though I know me speaking is my own brain.
Yeah.
It just makes it easier to do that process for me. So like I'll say my brain does this, even though I know it's fully myself. So my brain will be like, no, you're alone. Like I'll be like, what about this person? Nope, can't do it because of this, this, and this. So like one of my best friends, she had a baby recently and she is so cute. I just saw her the other day. So like one of the most common ones that my brain will give me is like, well, she's a mom. She's working. She's a mom. Her husband's working. Like, no, like she's got enough on her plate.
Right.
You can't go to her.
Don't bother her.
Yeah. So it's like stuff like that. Like,
well, and I think that's a common thing. Don't you see in the people that we see like that? I just don't want to bother people with my problems.
Right. I mean, I know that's kind of how I feel. I'm like, oh, people have enough of their own burdens. Why do I need to handle my burdens?
Yeah.
And then it just weighs you down.
Yep.
And then you can start overthinking things and just assuming the worst.
Yep. Yeah,
I consider myself a professional overthinker. Thank you.
I was going to say maybe you could start a club, but I don't know.
I would just overthink everything.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that kind of, I think the thing that really just like brought it to like, it was actually not that long ago. It was like 3 weeks ago, maybe. I lost my flash drive, which I did mention I am a writer.
Oh yeah. You were asking on the family chat, and I could tell you were really kind of fretting over that.
Yeah. Cause there were like 3 buildings it could be in. And that was work, mom and dad's house, and then my apartment.
And this flash drive had your stories on there?
All of it.
All of them.
All of it.
Oh, so kind of like freeze that thought, go back when you were in high school. Mm-hmm. She used to put all of her writing on her phone.
Yeah.
And then she was a member of the choir, and they had to put their stuff in a particular place.
For a concert.
For a concert. And she came back out, and your whole purse was gone?
It was my whole phone.
Her phone was stolen. And she really freaked out because it had all of her writings, and that was the only place that she had writings. So, yeah, I can see why. I didn't realize that's what you had on that.
Yeah.
Otherwise,
well, I was really upset for 2 reasons. One was the writing, and the second was it was a case that my older brother Sam let me use, and like I don't even think he cared that much for it, but like I was just like, I'm so sorry.
You put a high value on that, yeah.
Like, I lost it. I'm sorry. He didn't care. He was just worried about calming me down.
He didn't care.
But yeah, no, it was everything. So like that. Yeah, that.
So
just
that
really
probably like triggered that memory back in high school, I bet.
a little bit.
Yeah. See, I didn't even know all that was. I didn't know what the contents were on this thing that she was looking for. I just thought, oh, she lost something. Yeah. It'll come up.
Well, that's kind of too like that idea of not knowing really what's triggering the true emotions behind when somebody's looking for something or maybe acting out in a way that's not normal, and you're like, why are you taking this out on me? Mm-hmm. But you don't understand the underlying situation.
Yes. Yeah, good point.
Which is why we enjoy communication. It's very important.
Yeah.
Which therapy can help with too. There's various reasons to go to therapy, not just like depression, anxiety. Like you guys do premarital counseling, and that's a form of therapy. So it's just like there's many reasons to do it, even if it's just to be like, hey, let's see if I have anything wrong.
Right. But a lot of people don't want to even explore that. Like, I don't want to know if I have something wrong with me.
Right, I'm fine.
I think I'm doing okay. You know?
Right, I've survived X amount of years in life. I don't need it.
Yeah.
Is that German and Irish going in?
It's kind of like any other health issue. Like, I don't want to go to the doctor to find out what's, maybe there's something going on. I'd rather not know.
Well, that was like me with my sleep apnea.
Yeah.
I probably assumed I had it. And I was told by family, I'm like, oh, you have sleep apnea. I was like, I'm fine. I feel fine every morning. I don't sleep well, but whatever. I'm surviving. And it was like, I just don't want to sleep with a stupid CPAP machine because I don't want to deal with the mask every night. And then I was like, okay, fine. I was going to ENT for something else. And I was like, might as well say something about long as I'm here. And sure, lo and behold, I have severe sleep apnea. And now CPAP machine actually makes me sleep all the way through the night without waking up.
See, life is so much better
it
now
is,
for
but
you.
But it was one of those, I'm like, I don't want to deal with this stupid machine.
I can understand.
I can sleep just fine. But if I don't know, ignorance is bliss.
That's right. Yeah, that's the phrase. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, you definitely take a while to get to the doctor. You always think it's a cold until you can't say it's a cold anymore.
I am not one to go right away to the doctor. Yeah, I'm a stubborn German.
Yep.
Let's just
say
that.
That's where I got it.
Yeah.
That's where I got it. But yeah, so I lost this flash drive, and like it was in a pocket, and then like it was like a couple days probably after I lost it that I realized it was gone because I was going to like write, and I was like, where'd it go? It's not in the backpack I bring to work. Okay, let's just turn over my entire apartment. So I did, and then I didn't. I was really trying not to freak out because that was at like 8:30 at night, and I'm like, don't drive home. Don't drive to mom and dad's. Don't do it. Don't do it. So I waited till the next day because I stopped by to like check on the dogs anyway. So I was like, okay, that way it'll like let me check work. And then after work, I'll go to mom and dad's. I'll find it somewhere. I didn't. But I had also like brought my laundry that day because I will do that as well because laundry is expensive in my building. So,
cheap at mom and dad's.
Yes. Free.
That's a good deal.
It is, yeah.
So I was there, and I was kind of bummed at that point because it was a lot of work. And I think the only thing I had backed up from the flash drive was the one I'm actually working on now, but it was like a prior version. So there would have been like at least 2 chapters that would have been gone.
Yeah.
And I was like, no. But so I was just kind of like bummed hanging around. And you guys, no, actually that was a couple days later that I did my laundry because it was a Sunday.
That's right.
It was a Sunday. So I don't know what it was because normally it's not much of a thought just because I have like a bunch of other stuff. But like I did pull up a manual to watch that day. And I was like, yeah, I'll just listen to it. Like, it's fine. So, and then I was like getting my stuff ready. I took a shower, got all my stuff to like go and do laundry at the parents, check on the dogs and all that stuff. And you guys actually got home earlier than normal. So that was another thing in my head. I was like, oh, interesting. So like I hung out with you and Mom, and I think we were watching not basketball because I hadn't started yet.
Maybe Cubbies.
Yeah, like the Marquee Channel probably.
Yeah.
Ryan Sandberg game.
Might have been. It was a good Sunday.
Don't worry, you're not gonna have good Sundays during this baseball season.
Oh, okay, fella.
But yeah, so like it was definitely necessary, which I realized later after all this happened, because it was basically forcing me to socialize, which again hadn't fully been paying attention, but I was starting to like not do a lot, which is a big sign. A weird sign for me. Maybe someone can relate. I realize if I don't pluck my eyebrows as often as I need to, that's a sign for me.
Interesting.
So like that's actually from like a technique my therapist taught me of like what's your green signs, your yellow signs, your red signs. So the red signs are like you're pretty much in it, and then the yellow signs are like your warning signs, and the eyebrows are a warning sign.
Okay. So if you like start plucking your eyebrows, that's a warning sign?
No, like
You're not plucking.
Yeah, so if I go like
you just kind of let them go.
Yeah.
Like get dad eyebrows. Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Like mad
The
scientist
unibrow.
eyebrows.
Now I'm looking at your eyebrows to see.
Oh yeah. I mean, Mom is always. She's like, you look like a mad scientist. You got to trim your eyebrows. I'm like, I do. You know. So then what do? I get right up close to her. I go, hey, what do you think? You know. She's like, get away from me.
Yeah, so I just
weirdo.
Usually when I get my haircut, my barber's like, "Do you want me to get the eyebrows?" I'm like, "Sure, why
Yeah,
not?"
I know.
We're here. Let's do it. Yeah. So that was a weird thing I found out with therapy. So in case anyone
All
needs to
right.
relate to
Okay.
that. So
You'd think it'd be the opposite. Like,
would.
Like if you're nervous, you're picking your eyebrows, but this is you're going the other way.
yeah, I don't do anything with them, and I just stare in the mirror and be like, oh, I need to pluck those, and then I don't.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so again, it was good that I was actually socializing with you guys.
Okay.
I got great quality puppy time with Bailey and Barkley, and I always love that. Barkley is funny because anytime I take a shower, which I did that day, he will sniff my hair and then try and roll all over me.
Yeah.
And it's kind of funny.
Yeah. He's a goof.
Like, I don't know if it's just the smell and he needs me to smell normal, quote unquote, but like, it's funny.
He wants you to smell like him.
Probably.
Dirty dog.
And of course, Bailey was being sweet, just pawing at me for more
Yeah.
pets. And I was like,
Give
sure.
me attention.
Yeah. So
So when did you find the
in the dryer.
lost sheep?
It was in the dryer.
Did it survive the dryer?
No.
Okay.
It survived long enough where I could transfer all of it into a different flash
saints
drive.
be praised.
I know that was mostly the car ride, or like the thought that I had when I pulled out everything. I was like, please just work long enough for me to transfer.
Wow.
So
Wow, is right.
yeah.
That means it probably survived through the wash machine and
Yep.
the dryer.
Yeah. And the thing that bugged me about it is like, I know I checked my laundry. I know I checked the pockets. I know I checked the bottom. So I don't know how that got in
Somehow
there.
it was laying somewhere. Couldn't see it.
I don't know, wrapped up in a towel or something.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Who knows?
But yeah, so that it was a weird reaction because it wasn't like, oh my gosh, hey, like I got it. Like I didn't run upstairs and tell you guys. I just like said, hey, I found it.
So you weren't like the shepherd here that says "Rejoice with me, for I found my
you didn't
sheep
throw a
that was
party.
lost."
Yeah, not at the moment. But
So
yeah,
is this the thing that got you thinking about this parable? This whole like
a little bit.
is
There's a
is
little
your
bit more.
thumb drive the lost sheep? All right. Bring us home.
Yeah. So on the drive home, it's about like 20 minutes from you guys, like 20, 30, depending on which way I took. So I took 14, which you can get on to Roselle by the train tracks over there. And I like that one because it's more sun. I do also like 62 in Lake Cook because of the trees, but decided to do 14 that day. And I was listening to K-Love, which is a local radio station, if anyone doesn't know. It's a local Christian radio station. And that was also something I didn't normally do. I think pretty much what happened is you borrowed my car one time and played the radio, and I just didn't change it.
Probably.
But I didn't change it, so it was just playing. And like, of course, you know, they have a lot of good songs, and most of the time they do repeat. And I was just like sort of not thinking too hard, but still sort of thinking. So it was, I think I was coming up on the light before turning on to. No. It was the light right before the turn. So it was right before the ramp.
Okay.
And I just did a little quick prayer. Just saying like, oh, thanks for the flash drive. Like, please don't let it be dead yet. And the song "Reckless Love" by Corey Asbury was playing. So that has been a good song that I enjoy, and like we've played it in church before. And back when
Gathering Place we used to play.
Yeah. Back when we had Bob, I know that was one of his favorites too. So, and it was the particular chorus, like it was the first run through of that. So I did write it down because I knew I was going to forget the lyrics. So it's the overwhelming, never-ending, reckless love of God. Oh, it chases me down, fights till I'm found, leaves the 99. So the weird part, which I have not told anyone yet, partly because I want to do it here, so to do it. While the song was doing the fights till I'm found, leaves the 99, something in my head that was not my thought said, "I'm with you."
Oh, wow.
And it took me a second because my brain didn't process it immediately.
Yeah.
And after it did, I was like, that wasn't me. Like, there's no way that was me. So obviously it was the Lord.
Yeah.
And I immediately started sobbing. Like, not enough to like pull over, but like I was like holding myself on the wheel, like just like, holy crap. Like, because I've never had something like that. And like you always hear people talk about it. And it's like, oh, that's really cool. Like you don't doubt them, but it's just like, oh, that's like awesome. Like you've had instances like that. And like, I think Mal said she had something like that, my sister. But yeah, it was very distinct. And it was like, it's a cliche saying, but it was like a flip of the switch. Like my body just like relaxed, and not in the way of, not in the way of like, I'm about to fall asleep, relax, but like just enough.
All the tension and
because we both carry tension in our back. And it was kind of like that liquid fall. So it was, I almost did pull over at like the little police station there, but I don't know why I didn't. But so like I kept driving, and I was just like, holy crap. Like, and I just kind of kept thinking, I was like I just felt better. Like I wasn't anxious about stuff anymore. I wasn't like having to decide anything anymore, like anything like that. And then like the more I thought about it, I'm like, well, obviously my problems aren't going away. Like they don't just.
But now you have a peace.
Yeah. And that's kind of like, it's weird that you say that because I did not connect that until just now. That was like part of the prayers I was saying. Like, because I would either, like, prayer was always, at least during a stressful time, was a little weird because it didn't feel like it was working for me. But like I would see other people like pray and like it would go well kind of thing. And I know prayer is not a barter system.
No.
But like so my prayers ended up like I would still pray. But it was always like half-hearted, like quick ones, or like I was in my office crying, sobbing. Like it was very desperate. So that was kind of like one of the things I would say is like, I just want peace. Yeah. I'm like, I want stability. I want peace. Like, please.
Yeah.
But as you were talking, my mind went to Philippians 4, 6, and 7.
I'm right there with you.
Where it says, do not be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God, and the peace of God, which surpasses all understanding, will guard your hearts and your minds in Christ Jesus. So that's what it sounds like you were feeling, is you had that anxiousness, but then you had that peace of God come over you that surpasses our humanly understanding of things.
Yep.
Yeah, and you knew how real it was. You felt it. And
it's hard not to when it happens.
But you, even as you described, hearing what was told to you, I mean, that surpasses your understanding. So, and then this peace reigns over you is really that.
Right.
And when you said, I know prayer's not a barter system, which you're right, but there is this divine exchange that Pastor just read about. Yeah. Like when you're not anxious about anything, which is, I don't know what human can do that.
Right.
But if you're in prayer about everything, then God gives you what you just experienced.
Yeah.
And that's pretty cool.
Right. I think the other important part of that is that reminder of once we give it over to God, not to take it back.
Yeah.
I know that's my biggest problem is like, God, here's what I'm worried and stressed about.
Yeah.
And then 2 minutes later, well, I'm going to take that back, God. You don't worry about that anymore.
Yeah. I can handle it now. Now that I gave it to you,
let me take it back.
I can take it back and do it. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what's crazy though is like, again, it's very much the piece of it, but like I have not had an anxiety attack go fully blown since. I've had like the little creepy crawlies like in my neck, like, okay, something could come out of it, but I've not since had like a panic or an anxiety attack.
Praise God. Yeah.
It's still like
he's got you in a little,
little
I don't know, whatever you call it, a little space of time. He's got you in a space.
Yeah.
And like he's holding you close so that you don't experience that until he knows that you're ready to,
Yeah. And like that was, again, that feels like something I know because again, I've been raised in the church, like it. And so like it's something you're always told. It's like, yeah, no, he's
It's another
gotcha.
thing to feel it.
He's gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was wild. And then like not only was it because of the song, but also just like the whole circumstance is why I was like really like, oh, this is the lost sheep thing. Because, like, I remember, I forget when I did, but, like, someone was describing what it would take for a shepherd to carry a sheep back. And it is literally over his shoulders.
Yeah.
And, like, that is, like, so close and so dependent on the shepherd. So that was, like, another thing that, like, popped in my head. I was like, holy moly.
Yeah. I mean, you had said some word about, like, God... I don't know if you used the word pursue just a little bit ago, like God pursues or comes after.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And that reminded me of Psalm 23, where it says, surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord forever. I've come to learn that phrase, goodness and mercy will follow me, is that word follow is more of a active, like on your heels. And that I equate that to that pursuing, or he's with you. I'm
chasing
with you,
down.
Chasing you down. Maybe
reckless
that,
love.
Yeah, reckless love. And so, so Jesus, he's just not hanging back, waiting and waiting, but he's actually pursuing us.
He's active.
Actively, yeah. And that's a cool thing to realize. When you're in those moments of like, I'm taking this on by myself.
Yeah.
Right. And even though we didn't talk about here, we did a little bit on the kind of, that idea of like active pursuing. I think of the prodigal son, which is a couple parables later, where the father's actively waiting and watching for his son. And when he finally sees him, he runs to him.
Yeah. He has a little reckless abandon himself. Like he's,
he pulled up his robes, which heaven forbid, showing
some old dude in the community do
showing
that.
His ankles. That was unacceptable back in that day.
Who needs to see those ankles?
Nobody.
Yeah, in the middle of the community, and then like he goes to embrace the son who just treated him like he was already dead, and like you could imagine the people in the community like, what is he crazy old man doing?
Right,
he's got his ankles showing and he's wrapping his arms around
accepting that kid that said he was dead.
Yeah. Yeah.
No, that was actually because I did go over these as well when I like sent you that text. It was literally like 15 minutes before I texted you, by the way, that happened. So like that's when I went over it again, I noticed the following parables. So we, like you said, we were talking about it before we started. So like right after the lost sheep is the lost coin. So like they say it's like 10 coins, which okay, in this one and my study Bible, it like has a little note that it's like 10 drachmas, which is that Greek thing or the Greek coin. And the Romans had like their own, but it was like one was essentially worth a day's wages. So like losing one was losing a whole day.
Yeah.
And then that's then followed by the parable of the lost son, like you're saying, like that is very relational, very like person to person, like heart to heart. And so what I saw was like the progression of it. So sheep, I mean, yes, you need the sheep, but it focused more on the fact of like the shepherd going and getting. So it was very much like, I equated it kind of to like food and clothes because that's what sheep are used for, mostly clothes. And then the coin was a day's wage loss. So that's like more security.
Means.
Yeah, to live life.
Yeah. And then the prodigal son is the relational one. So it's the very close, almost more important one. Like, because it's not only taking in like the means, like the prodigal taking all the inheritance he was quote unquote owed. And then taking in like the father kind of like, he didn't necessarily like, no, the running he did. The running at his son to go get him. Like it takes both of those elements and then throws in that emotional like connection. So it's a very interesting progression that they have back to back for Luke.
That's really a great observation, is tying the three together.
Right.
And I like how you did that. Like, you know, the value of the sheep, the value of a coin,
And then
the value of relationships. And when Sydney brought this to me, I had the thought of like, from a worldly perspective, you know, if you have 100 sheep and you lose one,
Right.
yeah, it's you don't want to lose them, but it's like, it's just one out of 100.
Right.
So from a worldly perspective, it's like, okay, it's a loss. It's not a huge
Still
loss.
got 99%.
Yeah. You're doing pretty good. And then like you lose a coin that represents a day's wage. Yeah, you feel that when you lose a day's wage, but you can continue to.
Still got 90%.
Yeah.
90%'s a B or an A minus, depending on where you go to school, right? That's good.
Yeah,
And then
you can pass.
even to the son, a father loses a son, but if the son is so wayward and treats his father with such utter contempt, like he considers him dead already, then it'd be like, the world would say, that no good son, let him go.
Especially when he has another son that could still like be his heir and like stayed and like took care of all that stuff. Yeah.
But Jesus, he's not coming at us from the worldly view, right? Like, and so like everything that you described, and we all go through the things. I'm so grateful that you shared. This is really wonderful that you were willing to open up like this to us
to do so.
and to everyone. But when you talked about worthiness, and I think that's what we're kind of talking about, the worldly view of worthiness or the godly view of worthiness, and you felt like unworthy. And when we're struggling, Pastor even said, I'm not worthy to tell people about my problems, like they got enough to deal with. And so it seems like Jesus is really saying, you are worth it. Right. And when he came and spoke to you, I'm with you. You are worthy for me to be with you. That is so cool.
And I almost thinking, I can't remember if it was that 2016 National Youth Gathering, another one where they kind of were talking about how we feel worthless or not good enough, but Christ makes us worth enough. He puts our value right where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And that was what, I can't remember which year of the youth gathering because they sometimes blur together.
Yeah.
But that theme was always that, okay, Christ does make us good enough. And that's what we really need to remember in those times when we do feel I'm not good enough.
Yeah. And that rejoicing, that putting the sheep on his shoulder and having a party, and then the rejoicing over the lost coin, and then the father holding a party for the wayward son, the prodigal. And yeah, that's how Jesus looks to each and every one of us when we stray away from him, and then we are found in him, by him, because he's hot on our feet, pursuing us. It's an awesome thing.
It's a great feeling.
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah.
I can tell. Well, Sid, thanks so much for sharing this.
Yeah,
and
of course.
I know this is going to be really a blessing to some of our
Yeah,
listeners.
because I don't think we've talked much about mental health on the podcast.
Right.
I think there's another person that's asked to join that might talk about the same type of idea. But I think the more we can bring light to it, the more it will become comfortable for people to talk about these things and maybe reach out if they do have issues or are struggling, or just to be mindful of people in our lives that could be struggling.
Yeah, because I think we're all about, as individuals, putting up a persona or a mask, and we push down like, stubborn Germans and Irishmen.
Stubborn Irish, yeah.
Like, oh, I can handle this. Like you said, it would taking it back. I can handle it now. We all do that. So it's good to talk about that. So thank you for being so courageous and open up. And that takes a lot. And
of course. I
appreciate it.
It has become a topic where I'm like very open about, just because like I've gone through all that stuff. So it's like, I am happy to talk about it. I'm happy to explain at least my experience with it, because it is different for everybody. Although that does not mean you are alone. At least somebody else has experienced it the same way you have. Yeah, I'm happy to. So if you ever want another one, I'm happy to come back.
All right.
Awesome.
Thanks, Sid.
Yeah.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in, and we hope this has been a blessing to you, and we pray that God blesses your day. Thanks for joining us.
PD and P Dubs, unscripted.